Hey everybody, welcome back to Inside AVL, and I'm here with my good friend Alex Hayward. What's up, Alex?
Hey, man.
Alex has been in the music industry for quite some time. He was a former professor of music technology and production at UNF. He is the owner of Chromatic Studios here in Jacksonville, Florida, and the drummer for the Bread and Butter Band. And we're here to discuss his career and how to bridge education, studio production, and live performance. I know you were saying earlier that you grew up in this when you were younger. Your father had some influence. You want to start there?
Yeah. My dad was a drummer, and still is sometimes. And he got me kind of loving music across the board. He got me into playing drums, but also he had a real wide ranging love for music and would listen to all types of music. And I think, when you think back to what got you started down a road, I still, my favorite bands some of them are bands that I was listening to with my dad driving around in his truck way back in the day, And so I think that kind of started me down a pathway in music. And I think, like we talked about earlier, I for some people who it's a blessing and a curse, but for some people, it's literally the only thing that you know how to do, but also want to do.
Yeah, dude, it's our purpose.
It's our
my
purpose
in life,
yes,
too.
And I could learn many other things if I wanted to, but why would I? I've been blessed enough to make a career in the music business, and that's been a lot of fun, terrifying at times, but also just living the life, like as they say at times. So for me, I started out just playing drums, went from playing drums to multi-percussion, ended up, I started out, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do music full-time as a career. I played in a ska band back in high school and back when the ska scene was popping, and it was a blast, but then decided, well, I guess I have to go to college and grow up, or whatever. And so but I knew I still wanted to do music. So I started in a music therapy degree at Florida State and was into it, but it was way more therapy than music. And it wasn't, I was using music, but really I was using music with the patients, not myself. And I longed for music, So I ended up going over to UNF to study jazz over there under Ricky Kirkland. And while doing that, met Charlotte Mabry, percussion instructor over there, recently passed away. And she kind of changed the way that I see music, feel music, hear music. And I began to play a lot of mallet instruments, marimba, vibraphone, xylophone, and that changed the way that I heard music, because for the first time ever, I was going from although I think the drums are incredibly musical, it's rhythm, and when I got to playing mallet instruments, especially four mallet instruments, you've got harmony, you've got melody, and it really opened up the way I thought about music, the way that I heard music. And at that time I was in this band called Chroma, and so I began writing songs and started going down that path. And within the band, nobody knew how to record. So, I talked to a buddy and he said, there's a program called Pro Tools. You got to check this out. So
What Pro Tools did you start on?
5 or 6.
I started out on 4.
Yeah. I mean, this would have been
early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Yeah, 4 was 2003.
Okay, so then maybe it was 4. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's on Pro Tools 12 now or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they lost the number.
Track. Yeah. So that was, I went from like, okay, well, let me figure out how to put a mic in the room so we can the goal wasn't to record ourselves. The goal was to listen as a band so we could go back and fix things and practice based off of our recordings, Yeah. So, but then in doing that, I quickly realized this is really cool. I really like this, and as going into that, I realized, like, whoa, this is its own instrument, many instruments within here. And the amount of time it was going to take and did take, but it became that fire like when I was a kid. And all of a sudden it was the first time in a long time where I really it was new and it was exciting, and it made me love music all over again, and within that capability, I had the ability to now touch every aspect of the music and be a part of the songwriting, be a part of the playing, be a part of the recording, be a part of the mixing.
Even the psychology of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
We were talking about vocalists and how vocalists are their worst critic.
Yep.
And sometimes, as an engineer like yourself, and it gives some credibility to them, some confidence, some reassurance that, hey, you sound good. And it goes along with, recording your band. They want some reassurance by listening to playback and be able to perform better.
Yeah, 100%. I've been lucky enough to be on both sides, where I've been the vocalist in the vocal booth, and I've also been the engineer. And man, it is a wild case study on just the human psyche, and vocalists seem to be the most, and this is a very obviously stereotypical and wide-ranging statement here, but like, vocalists seem to be the most in their head and
They're sensitive.
most sensitive, yes, and respond positively or negatively to feedback. So I have found many times that it's not a be careful what you say, it's choose words wisely, because you're here to help this group make a great product. You want them to walk away from the studio not realizing they had that in themselves, and so that when they finally get their album, like, they are just showing it to everybody, they're putting it out there, like, because they are proud, of how good they sound. Because, as the musician, man, you put a lot of time into that. People, the typical person doesn't realize it is an artwork, and my wife's a visual artist, so I will watch her, and it's funny because I often compare, like, abstract work to making a record, because you look at an abstract painting with just a bunch of colors up there and you go, well, I could do that. Anybody can do, but then you watch the process and you realize how much paint is on that paper, how many layers, how much it took to get that painting to turn out that way. And with an album, it's funny, I remember reading, I cannot remember where this came from, but I remember reading a long time ago a little article on why doesn't your studio sound like the top records out there or whatever. And what really got me was, of course, it had the obvious, what are you using, many thousands of dollars worth of microphones? Are you using a $500,000 console? Are you using blah, 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 blah? Sure, the gear is expensive, the room sounds great, all of those things. But what it also touched on was, did a top tier producer produce this music? Did they deal with the song form? Are you dealing with studio level musicians? Are you dealing with, like, literally from the absolute ground up to the very, very end of this record? All of those elements make a really big difference in the final product, and that's always kind of stuck with me, especially with the musician's side or part of it, in that I think that people don't. And I don't know if this is something that happens only in America or it happens everywhere in the world. I don't know, but we have such high standards, and people don't, as much as they should, and again, this is a general statement, they don't look at that it's, they call doctors a practice, like, this is a practice.
They're literally practicing on you.
Yeah, this album is a snapshot of where you are right now. And if you aren't, and same thing as an engineer, if your next record doesn't sound better than this record did, then you're not growing and you're not getting better and you're not changing. And if you don't do the records that sound like garbage, you're not going to get to the gold, and I think that has to be the case as the engineer. It has to be the case as the musician. You both have to know this, shove all that aside, go in there and just make the best album that you can make at that point in time, and hopefully it gets better and better for your career, for the artist's career, for everybody, as you go along. Hopefully it gets better and better and you get better and better, and you look back and you're embarrassed to show people this one that you did 20 years ago because it's not what I sound like now, but like I think that there's a growth to whether you're going to school, whether you're doing it yourself, whether you're an engineer, musician, whatever. We're all just trying to learn. We're all just trying to get better.
Well, it kind of comes down to money too, right? So like we talked earlier off camera about whether you should be the one recording or performing, recording, mixing, and mastering. And I could tell you for whoever's listening out there, if you think, no, I got it, I got the mastering, I say that you're wrong. And a lot of it is down to psychology, like we were talking about for the vocalist. It's the same thing as like you mentioned with your wife and being a painter. I was going to ask you, how many times did she step back from the canvas? Because she will. I will go. I had to stop going into her studio because I'll go in there. I'll be like, "This looks great," and I would come back the next day and I'll go, "What happened?" So, "Oh, it wasn't done." Like the layers on layers on layers on layers. Audio's the same way, dude.
Absolutely.
Like if it's great to punch out, the one take drummer is an amazing thing. That's a phenomenon that not every band gets to experience. And it does eat up studio time, which means money. But, the band that, that's why the whole thing is overdubs too. You want, I think one of the most important things about recording live music is the vibe that you feel within each other and that connection that you feel within each other. And most importantly, that endorphin rush, it's, if you're not a creator, you don't know what this natural high is. Yeah. And it's just like, my wife would be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm in my zone. Like, I'm happy." Yeah. I can honestly say that I'm happy. And there's nothing else like it. There's nothing. There are other zones. Athletes can get in their zones. Intimacy. A chef can get in their zone. Everybody can get into their zone. But the way, like the because especially when you talk about live performance, this element of being in your zone mixed with this crowd, this audience who's watching you be in the zone, and the energy is exchanged, like they're giving you their best energy. You're then taking and absorbing and feeling that, and that lifts you higher. You're giving your best energy back. There really is nothing else like it on the planet as far as I'm concerned. I started in Spain when I was in the military. I started to get that feeling because I would DJ vinyl. There was no beat matching, hit this button and it matches. It was by ear counting. I knew every record and the 10 milk crates that I had, which went where and which song went with what. And that's really kind of like where my music career started and falling in love with it there. So like having that, it's a nervous feeling. But then once you get into it and everybody's just rocking out to it, it's just becomes this over emotional, like I just don't want it to stop. Yeah. And I think that's why maybe some DJs or performers could just play for hours because it's just like, I'm in my zone, dude. Like I'm in no happier the place than I am right now. Yeah. You hear the comparison of the guitar is the mistress. You know what I mean? Like you've got a girlfriend and sometimes the girlfriend's the mistress to the guitar, because you become intimate with your instrument. Like your hands on the drums, on the sticks, the way that it feels, and why does it feel different today than it felt yesterday? Like learning the muscle control within your fingers, but also learning how this cymbal sounds like this tom sounds like this. I think I'm going to use this snare on this recording because I like the way it cracks. I'm going to use these toms because they're big and they're thuddy, And again, from a drummer standpoint, from an engineer standpoint, it's
this sounds good, but like it's so much more than that. It's about this makes me feel a certain way, and I want to capture that, and I want other people to feel that way. And the more that you do that, the more that you really do become intimate with your instrument. You become intimate with a mix. It's funny. I will play a track that I've been mixing for my wife. What do you think this sounds like? And she'll say something about the lyrics, and I'll go, "Oh, what does it say?" I didn't know that I'm so music focused that I didn't even realize that the lyric was saying this. And even within, I will, because I'll be focusing on the inflections and the way the vocalist sang the specific line. I hear the sounds, I hear the timbre, all of that way more than the actual words that are happening, and I just think that, I don't know. I think, just to kind of round it off, it's like nothing else, and we're blessed to have it.
Not only that, dude, is that we get to teach kids how to do this.
Yep.
And teaching the next generation is really important, whether it be in church or whatever. One of the first things that I have any of my students do, and I'm sure maybe you instituted this too, is how to dissect a song. So I tell them, I give them the assignment, say, hey, I want you to find your favorite song, and I want you to write down what every instrument on there is, from the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, all the way down to the bass or the marimba or whatever it is, and tell me what it sounds like. Because once you discover how to dissect a song like that, you're in. That's the core to mixing, right? Like, you have to be able to individually hear these instruments instead of something that's blended together, which is what the audience is doing.
And it gives you so much more respect for the other musicians within the group, Like when you start realizing, wow, this person's doing all of that, that keyboardist is unbelievable that they can do that. That bass player, when I hear just that bass line, I do this now. You can take everything else out, and I'm still doing this.
Before I forget, you're a drummer. Do you have a drummer's face? Come on, give it to us.
Probably, man.
Give it a shot.
Gosh, I don't know anything with that. Something like that.
There's this thing, the bass face. I think, but the guitarists have a guitar face, right? Or is it just bass face?
No. I think everybody's got their own, and but it is different. It's funny, and I think that in some ways, the style of music, you tend to see it again. You can't talk about this stuff without oversimplifying and these being generalizations, But I think that your jazz guitarist has one face, and your rock guitarist has a different face, and your funk guitarist has a different face. I
don't think the sound guy has any face.
Usually, it's a look of fear of what's going on, what just happened, what's that buzz.
But the sound engineer that's standing there like this, that means he has everything under control. Yeah. If your sound engineer's head's down the whole time, he's struggling, and it's not always their fault. As sound engineers, we would. Yeah. So, what skills are students missing today, would you say?
Well, something that I really notice, because I have been on all the sides of it, and I have gone to some, young, whether they're engineers or musicians or whatever, and I have said, going to school might really help you, because there's a prearranged organization to this. There's a pathway. This could help get you focused and moving in a right direction. And I've gone to some of my students from young to, college age, and said, you don't need to be here. You already do all of these things, So I think that what I find is missing most, and I don't know if this is about today or if this is the way it's always been, but I see so many students, they're waiting for the handout, and maybe it's not a golden ticket, but they're waiting for you to tell them what's next, what to do next. And it's like, dude, have fun and let that fun lead you where you're going to go.
Be humble.
Be humble. Absolutely. Right. Be humble. Ask all the questions. I don't see enough of that. And really, to me, that is a major difference from, in my opinion, the two types of students, and you see those students who do it on their own. And sometimes those students go through a college environment, so to say. And sometimes they just go off and they do their own thing. But those are the people who they hear something and they ask, what was that sound? Why did that sound? Why did that instrument, how did that happen? Can I recreate that? How can I change that and make that my own? Then you see how they got there. And I think that's beautiful to watch, and then there are other types of students that are not going to do anything if you don't tell them to do it. And to me, that right there is your Achilles heel. Like that, you just, if you're not curious and you're not asking all the questions, like you're just missing it. You're missing the fun and the excitement and that thrill that we were talking about.
I mean, you go to school, you can read all the books and get the highest grade.
Mm-hmm.
The highest grade point average. But then, once you leave school and you don't apply it because you don't have that motivation or that drive, then what good are you?
I have passed students that got A's but didn't learn anything, Right. And coincidentally, I have flunked students who were brilliant, but they just didn't do the assignment, so, and I'll straight up go to them and I'll be like, you're amazing. This is fantastic. I love what you do. Keep doing this. You're going to fail this course because you didn't turn in your homework. And that's the way college goes. So I'm going to have to fail you.
School of hard knocks.
School of hard knocks, man. And I think that's really, really important because when, schooling is, it depends on how you use it. If you go in and you push yourself and you're curious and you really apply yourself, man, it is nothing could be better for a person, besides being out on the road and all that. But we just can't all do that. We don't all have the resources or the ability to leave home or whatever. So, but unfortunately, you see a lot of students who don't utilize all that they have sitting right in front of them. And so, you do see students who, once they finish school, they're still sitting there waiting to be told what to do next, and they don't make it very far. And I don't think that has anything to do with music. I think that has to do with any career. You can go out and get a business degree, and if you don't go then apply for these jobs, if you don't put this to use to start your own business or whatever you're going to do, you're not going to get real far in the business world. It doesn't matter. That is less about music and more just about, I feel like, and this could be a whole nother side discussion, but when you start getting into technology and screens and blah, 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 and kids, and I fight this with my own kids, where nobody's bored anymore. Everybody has, I was just talking to a buddy the other day about how, when we were younger, you had Saturday morning cartoons and you lived for that, and you didn't have anything else besides Saturday morning cartoons.
Did you watch KTLA? Well, I grew up in the LA area, so it was Popeye.
I remember Popeye. Yeah, okay. Right. G.I. Joe for me. G.I. Joe, I used to love G.I. Joe. Yeah, He-Man. All the reboots that are coming out now. But but then that was it. And you were bored about 80% of the time, and then a friend.
Really, I don't ever remember saying I was bored. I just found something to do.
Yeah, because it was what it was.
Yeah, you use your imagination more often, I think.
But that's what it was. You had that time, and when you're bored, what happens? You just make stuff up. Yeah,
You pick up an instrument and start playing it.
Absolutely, and that happens less and less and less in today's world, and it's not the kids' fault, like these social media games, all that, they are designed to keep your attention, I do feel like that we have hit a point now where we're beginning to see adults of that childhood. And I know. And it's wild because, and it's not all doom and gloom, because I think that there's also many people out there who saw that and opted not to do that. You know, I have to, I always have to try to zoom out a little bit, because it's easy to kind of, you know, let fear grip you and think that nothing's going to work anymore, and you know, but like, there's always going to be beautiful and creative people who they shine like a light, you know, and you just gravitate towards them because of what they're doing and their creativity and all that. And you know, I think that there has always been those people, and people who maybe are okay with I just want to go to my job and then I want to go to the concert to see that person. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. Like I try really hard not to like make it seem like somebody is better than or more than because they do this or that. I don't think that at all. I just think that there are people out there that, I mean, clearly there are leaders out there, there are followers out there, there are creatives out there, there are business-minded people. This world is full of all the different types of people. I'm very much a live and let live type of thing, but within this particular environment, you go out and you get it or you don't. And if you don't, and I think that starts at practicing, that goes, you know, that moves on to networking, that goes into really trying to get jobs, it goes into being a professional, it goes into just seeing what, you know, like for me, it was always, what are they doing? You know, everything from like when I was younger and I started with a band, you know, well, where's this band playing? Where you know, what did they do on their record? It's always like, it's, you know, it's emulation, but also it's this mixture of like, I want to do what they did because it worked so well, but like I still want to do my thing. So it's you know, a nice melting pot of asking the questions and then taking action for your own self, creating your own direction, you know, forging your own path on whatever it be, whether it's you know, again, building your own studio, or writing an album or whatever, you know.
Yeah, so here we are sitting in my studio. Mm-hmm. This is my creation station.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Chromatic Studios. Mm-hmm. Why is that the exact reason why you built your studio? So you didn't have any type of limitations. You didn't have to go pay someone. You have your stuff there.
Well, it started that way. Okay. It started out as I was the only guy in the band that figured out how to record us.
Right.
And, you know, I started with Pro Tools and I moved from, I mean, honestly, Pro Tools is still my go-to.
So you didn't go to school to get a degree in this?
I did not. Nope. Okay. No, which was ironic because I ended up teaching it in school. Well, you know, but I was lucky enough to be around good musicians. That was a step one. And then after that, I began to know good studio engineers. You know, Matt Grondin, who later opened the Parlor Studio. Mm-hmm. I kind of like, you know, can I ask you another question? You know, again and again and again and again, and would go over to his house and listen to his mix and help him mic stuff up and figure things out. And then, you know, after I graduated school, Chroma, the band that I was in at that time, decided to move up north, and I ended up moving to New York by myself, and I got into post-production audio, doing film and television audio at a studio called Soundtrack NY up there, and that was film and television, some music stuff. You know, Andy Wallace was the lead engineer up there, incredible engineer. So got to kind of like, you know, peek in and listen to stuff here and there, but also a lot of really good, high quality, high caliber post-production audio, you know, whether it was Foley or ADR or whatever. So I got to...
I love sound design, dude.
Me too. I love it.
Creating noise, blending them together at different amplitudes. Mm-hmm. And I remember in school, Blade Runner, I don't know if you know the intro, but it's flying through space and there's a big fireball. Well, I remember taking Cheetos, walking through rocks, my fans have really nice low end, by the way, on the back, and just kind of making this ball that doesn't exist, you know. great stuff, man. I love it.
It's a blast. I always loved Foley. I have done, my share of Foley work, of Foley editing, which is not nearly as fun as Foley, but and in ADR work, but also sound design. And it's funny because I used to teach. We had a course called Audio for Media that I taught for several years, 8-9 years actually.
Wow.
And there was a section of post-production audio, and we would get into Foley, and that was always my favorite part of that whole course and I think the students too, because that's where you really start to see some of the creativity, because I wouldn't really give them too much up front. I would give the assignment first.
Right.
And then we would get in and talk about how to create sounds, how to layer sounds. And then I would give them additional assignments once they had that information. And it was neat to see, some of them, how much better it got, and how much different it was. Some of them, there's, like everything, like anything, there's always students who just don't care or try, and there's other students, the ones you live for,
just don't have it too.
Yeah, some just don't have it. And it's interesting because you teach long enough and you start to realize that this is a stepping stone for them. Some people are on that life path, and other people are just, who knows where this is going to lead, and they're picking stuff up from this. They're picking up bits of knowledge and information, and maybe that's going to help them as a piece in where they go next. But you definitely see that where this is for some people and it's not for some people. But now it's gone full circle. I was working with some kids, 11, 12, not too long ago, and we had to create some basically Foley sound effects for a play that was happening, for this summer camp kind of situation, and it was a blast, and they had a lot of fun, and very much it doesn't matter what age. When you show somebody, a finger in cornstarch sounds like somebody walking through snow. They could be 60.
Mind-blowing.
What's that?
That'd be mind blowing. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And you see them go, no way, whoa, that's awesome, And I love that. I've always loved that about teaching, and myself too. Like as a drummer, like it's meditation, and some of the most profound realizations about life have happened in the middle of a boring exercise while I'm sitting here trying to master a specific exercise, and all of a sudden I go, that's what that means. Like it just, when you're in that flow, life just gives you gifts, and so I really, really love, and it adds fire back to me watching students of any age, the light bulb go off and see them go, whoa, that means I can do this and this and this and this. And you almost want to end the lesson right there and go, all right, go do it.
What do you think makes a great sound engineer?
Patience. I think going into, whether it's in the studio or it's live, I think it's really important to have your foundation in your knowledge, but I think it's really important to approach each situation as if this is a brand new thing for me. What I see a lot of younger engineers do is they go, oh, bass, okay, here's my EQ for bass. It's like, well, what about this bass? I remember being tracking a record for somebody, and the drummer said, I want to cut all the low end out of my bass drum. And I was like, excuse me? And I was like, what are you talking about, man? And he said, nope, let's just do it. I said, okay. I think being open to what the musicians hear, because at the end of the day, it's their song, so there's this give and take between, trust me, this is going to sound good. You're going to like this. And trying to see what they want to do, because there's always imagine telling a group that this doesn't sound good, and they go to a different engineer and create a groundbreaking record with this new sound that you were not open to, so But this drummer, I remember moving the filter over, being like, him being more, being like, what are you talking about? But I went with it, and sure enough, we throw it into the mix, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? What? How does this work? But in that song and that record with that band with that style of music, it worked.
Well, the bass player filled in that.
The bass player filled it in, you know, and okay. I wouldn't.
I was like, what? There's no low end?
98% of the time, I would never do that again. But it worked right there, you know. So I think that.
Where did you end up cutting them off? Like 1,000 hertz?
Boy, I don't remember. Well above where I would have normally. I don't know if I got that high, but probably in the 500-600 range, because I cut a lot of that stuff out anyways. Often when I'm EQing a kick, you know. But
it's amazing how wide of a frequency range the kick drum can be.
It's wild, and how important. You know, everybody thinks it's just thud, you know, but like there's some spots in there that if you don't have that, you don't have a kick. You know,
right.
It's just woof woof. You know, which can work sometimes, but
or you didn't cut a hole in your head.
Right, yes.
And live performance jazz does that, and I've seen him pull it off with the mic and everything.
Yeah,
I just couldn't cope with that.
It is very challenging. It always has been for me to get a quality kick sound in a live setting from a jazz drum set. A drum set that has been tuned for jazz. Okay. You know, where the kick almost is the next tom in the row. You know, because oftentimes jazz drums are tuned up much higher, and the tone of every drum, including the kick, is really important. And man, it can be challenging, because if it's in the studio, I'm looking more for like a large diaphragm in front of that. I mean, I still want a dynamic tight on it or whatever, but like I want the tone of that kick. I want it to sing.
What would you say the difference is between studio and live performance? I mean, we're miking up the same instruments. Mm-hmm. We're obviously in a different space. Mm-hmm. Not every studio is like, you know, completely padded with. I mean, you want it to be live, have a little bit of verb in it, some reflection in the room. What makes it different?
Well, there's a mental aspect to it. You know, I think when you're in the studio, I wouldn't call it introverted, but you're thinking about each little element, you know, like
and it's going to be something that's heard later.
Right. That's you know, if you're recording, live can as well, but it typically isn't. You know, you're gonna have, for every 100 shows, you're gonna have 10 that are recorded, unless it's a Fish or some other band that is known for their live performance, Goose or whatever. You know, like some of these bands where people just go out and record every single show they do. But for most of it, even if the engineer's recording it, they're recording it so that they can listen to it and they can mess around with mixing or change mixing the next show to try to make their own mixes better. Or sometimes bands will record their live performances so that they can listen back and go, I think this works really well. I don't think this works really well. Because I think one big difference is, when it's live, you're in the moment the entire time. It's all output. Whereas when you are in the studio, it is a combination of like we're taking in this input from the engineer, we're discussing with each other what do we think sounds good, and then it's output. So I think that within studio recording, there's a much higher degree of mental performance needed than there is on a live show. Whereas when you're live, like you need that physical energy. I mean, always you need mental clarity or whatnot, but live is about that physical output, that physical energy. And again, like all of these, everything I'm saying is grossly over exaggerated. I know there's a lot more to just have energy.
Well,
you're going to have a great
show.
Go
out completely obliterated.
Yeah, absolutely.
I heard an interview just recently with Tommy Lee and Rogan, and Tommy was talking about he went to go. They were playing. Motley Crue was playing with what's Mick Jagger? What's that band?
The Rolling Stones?
The Rolling Stones,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
They were playing with the Rolling Stones, and he was invited backstage, and they were completely obliterated.
The Stones were?
Right. And so then they were like, come on in, Tommy. Like, so drink with us. And then they went out on stage and performed it like there was nothing. Mm-hmm. But I think that's just muscle memory, or I couldn't.
Yeah, I mentioned.
I don't know how they do that at that age.
Right? Yeah, I mentioned Fish. I read a documentary. I used to be a big Fish fan way back in the day, and I read a documentary on them, and they talked about that they would like have competitions to see who could get more drunk to keep it interesting. Because they were playing and they've got a huge repertoire, but like they were playing the same songs night after night after night after night, and even if they were switching songs up, they'd played them 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And I think
muscle memory.
Any band it is the way it is. It's like anything. An actor on stage, when they're on a traveling Broadway show, like they have said those lines. They said those lines 1,000 times before their first performance. And they have said them 1,000 times in every single show since. So it is muscle memory, and live performers of any kind can do that. I do think it is a certain type of person who can go out and get obliterated and still do that. That was never me. I could never do that, I stopped drinking years ago anyways, but
Me too.
when I used to drink and play, it was like, first off, I lost control. Like my hands wouldn't respond in the way that I wanted them to respond. Mentally I wasn't there. If I was singing, because I sing a lot too, and when I would sing, my pitch was not there. I lost the actual physical control of my body.
You want to know something crazy? So I don't know if you know this, but alcohol, nicotine, all restricts your air canals. So your air canals condense, and then you can't hear as well. So those that are out there that drink, smoke, that's why you can't hear.
Yeah.
I wanted to try something new for this podcast, and that's what I refer to as the fast round. I think it'd be kind of fun. I kind of already know the answer for the first one.
Okay.
So here's the first one. Analog or digital boards?
Hybrids.
I love. In the studio, analog is.
In a studio, absolutely. How much money do you have?
Right.
Can you get all the outboard gear? I'm a big fan.
Can you get a Wolf?
Right? Yes.
Wolf audio.
And God, man, that guy's he's another level too. He's amazing. But I do love. Live sound digital. You just can't. And it's gone in the last 20 years. It went from this is cool, but to. If you A-beat them, could you really hear the difference?
Okay, but the thing about analog and digital on another sense too is that analog you would have to start over every gig.
Absolutely.
So a digital console allows you to walk in, let's say you play the same 5 or 10 or 20 venues. You save the scene for that, and the next time you go back, you have a good reference point.
Yep. And you're starting to see. I saw a interview with somebody, an engineer, the other day, and the guy was having his second kid, and they were about to go out on tour, and he was like, guys, I can't do this tour. And they ended up working it out where they set him up in his home. He did every single show on that tour he remoted everything in. Now he had boots on the ground there, like setting all the gear up and blah, 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 and doing all that. But like he triggered things. He did talk back. He did everything right from his home while sitting there. So like digital, you just can't compare the two.
That was a little longer than the fast.
Yeah,
but,
sorry.
No, here we go. In-ears or wedges? I'm not a musician, but I would...
As a musician or as an engineer?
Well, as an engineer, it's obviously in-ears.
100%.
Because the less stage volume on stage, the better.
Absolutely.
But as a musician, do you still want to have...
If you have a good engineer mixing your ears, 100%.
There's your answer.
Yeah.
Studio or stage?
As a performer, as an engineer, God, they're so different.
Well, you've held all those hats. So
yeah,
which one do you prefer?
I have a love for the creative space that a studio is, but I also have a love for getting out there and having fans give you energy. That's a really tough one. Both.
Your favorite DAW?
Pro Tools. I guess. I mean, it's just I am.
Yeah, me too.
It's always been my go-to. You know, not for MIDI.
I mean,
but,
since the early 2000s, man, for sure.
Yeah.
Favorite microphone?
Boy, these are really hard questions.
You don't have a favorite microphone?
I mean, studio.
Mine's the TLM 103.
It's great. It's great.
I really love it on a nice, warm female vocal man. I fell in love with it at school. It's not like the most fancy. It's not a C800G. I haven't honestly heard or had the experience with a C800G, but I mean, for $13,000, $14,000 or more, they should be pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's highly sought after. But
I have a Soyuz 017, I think, and it's butter. I love it.
those are good mics.
Great mics.
Most underrated gear.
I have a set of stereo pair of Octava. I think they're Octava is what it's called. You know those?
Yeah.
Little small diaphragm condensers.
Yeah, they're Russian, I think.
Russian.
Yeah.
And for mandolins and folk bluegrass stuff. Whoo, man. I mean, I think they've gone up a little bit, but when I bought them, they were like $350 for the stereo pair. Come in a real nice wood box, everything, and no one's ever heard of them. But man, do they sing! They I don't know that I have a more a natural sounding, just truly realistic, wide open set of small diaphragms besides those.
Favorite XLR brand? I could tell you it's soon to be Astrope.
Soon to be,
I'm
yes.
telling you. Shout out to Astrope.
Yeah. I like Megami. Megami sounds great. I like Crane. Crane sounds really good too. But Megami's kind of a trooper.
Well, I'm going to blow your mind. So, your favorite concert ever you've been to? You were talking about that vibe and where, I mean, it could be, what's your answer?
Okay, I have two.
Okay.
One is growing up in Tampa, there was a ska band called Magadog, and it was the first. I was probably 13. They used to have this tropical heat wave thing down in Tampa, and I was the first time I went to the concert, and they exploded, and everybody started skanking and dancing, and I jumped in, and as it was like, oh, I'm not a kid anymore, and it was moving to me. And then as an adult, saw Radiohead, and I was walking to or from the bathroom, and they started playing a song, All I Need, and it literally floored me. I stopped, and I just closed my eyes and was just like, how is this all encompassing and this beautiful? Like, they sound just as good live as they do, studio, so I think those are my two.
One last one. Dream artist to produce. If you could produce anybody out there, who could it be? You're like, man, I got my dream come true.
I know. I would say Radiohead, but I don't think I could do it better than they already do it themselves. He's passed away now, but I always wanted to do something with Guy Clark. This guy Guy Clark, who's a Louisiana, Texas, Nashville folk guy. A lot of the guys in the folk world say, you've made it if Guy Clark invites you over for dinner. And he's one of those guys who's a singer-songwriter that again never had the mainstream hits, but if you're in that field, he's the legend. But I just loved his writing. His lyrics were just amazing. His songs were they were simple, but so complex and so deep, Hey
man, I want to thank you for being on the show. If every aspiring musician, engineer, producer, or AVL producer or a professional could learn one lesson from your career, what would it be?
Say yes first.
That was a lot of hats. Musician,
Yeah.
engineer, producer, AVL professional.
For me, my kind of mantra has always been say yes now, figure it out later. I mean, you got time. Say yes and figure it out.
Hey, Alex, thanks for being on the show, man. I really appreciate you. If you enjoyed this episode, which I know you did, if you made it all this way, please comment down below, like, share, comment. That makes this podcast grow bigger. Man, thank you so much for being on my show, dude.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks, dude. Peace
Yeah.
out.
All right.